Okay.
Think we
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Okay, now we're live, and welcome everybody here. We're with the Notes Show, and we're going to talk about mobile home investment, and Alden's going to kick us off here with the discussion.
Yeah, happy to be here. June 8th, Saturday, on the Notes Roundtable, mobile homes, manufactured housing, and affordable investing in the market of affordable housing. There's a big need for affordable housing across the country, and I think that's where manufactured housing fits in the market. While BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are all pushing people out of home ownership with the unaffordability of residential real estate and their acquisitions in single family residence, we feel that there's a great opportunity and a need for mobile homes, manufactured housing on leased land, ultimately offering a more affordable price point out in the market. And that affordability, as far as the price point, offers us the availability to offer a seller carry finance structure that matches market rent. So not only are we capitalizing on the individuals that are wanting affordable home ownership here in our local marketplace of Arizona with a big need, but also introducing the new renters into a home ownership program where they can match market rent. So that's just a little synopsis of what we're seeing out in the market and the potential for explosive growth in providing the commercial availability of quality manufactured housing here in our local marketplace of Arizona. I mean, single family residents right now, average purchase price is like $400,000. I mean, just to qualify for a $400,000 purchase, an individual needs to make an $80,000 a year income with little to no debt. How many people are making $80,000? There's not that many individuals. The average income of Maricopa County, Arizona is like $60,000 and a combined household income. So you now have a new category of lifetime renters that have been pushed out because institutional investment houses have raised the purchase prices of single family residents, and they're struggling with that right now. So that's the biggest thing I'm seeing currently in the market of housing, which is obviously the unaffordability and the lack of opportunity to own a home here in my local market. And I think I'm seeing that across the country.
Alden, I think we're just running with this. He wants you to just run with this, but to add to that, it's a consistent demand. And even as interest rates, we don't know what the Federal Reserve is going to do. They claimed at the beginning of the year they were going to reduce interest rates 3 different times this year. It hasn't happened. Inflation's still running. And, we're not economists, but we're business people. And in our scope as we see it, like Alden's mentioning, for somebody to actually get qualified for a single family home, which is their dream, to actually own a home, that's the dream. For them to be able to do that across the country, you think about, even Alden's going to be 30 years old this year. The standard person coming out of college, they can't afford a house, so we have a generational renters that are in the market, while they still have the perspective mindset, or at least most people still have the perspective mindset that one day they do want to own a house. So we've kind of bridged that gap and realized that there's this little quiet market that's still running that a lot of people don't focus on. You have the gurus out there all over the country teaching people how to buy and rehab and resell, and they're still trying to pick off the market of single family homes and multifamily and so forth. But everybody, nobody's really focusing on mobile homes on leased land. There's not a big cooperative across the country. And we happen to be in a top 3 market in Arizona. Florida is a big market also. Those sun states are strong markets. But as we talk about those, it's just, everybody needs some affordability. And we've happened to come up with a program where if we can create a ownership program for somebody, why rent when you can own, and get them out of the rental market and give them the peace of mind that they actually own something over a period of time, they jump at it. So we really focus on that market, which is low cost housing market, which really a lot of people don't focus on it. We just consistently see that there's an opportunity, even as we go through summer. In Arizona, it's hot, man. It's I think it was 110. It's going to be 110 to 114 degrees this week. It's HOT hot. But even as it's hot, the real estate market on low cost housing is still strong. It still continues to go. We're still writing contracts for purchases. People are still looking for a place to live that suits them and fits their model of life of what they're trying to get into.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. We recently started delving into more all-age communities where historically the mass majority of leased land mobile home parks here in the Valley are 55 and older. So that's where we were kind of falling into the more 55 and older category for a long time, where now we're offering more availability with our strategic partners that we've made on a corporate level of the institutions that own mobile home parks here in the Valley. They're helping us provide more commercial availability of family style communities. Well, for a new family, it's tough to even find housing, a 3-4 bedroom to either rent or buy. A lot of them are really just looking to rent because they have that need for more square footage, more rooms, but they don't have the initial finances to even qualify for a purchase, as well as the high rental cost here in the Valley. I think I was talking with my partner James about I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, rent was like $1,000 a month, and now we're dealing with an average rental rate here in the Valley of $2,000. So that creates a big ecosystem as far as a new category of lifetime renters that were caught off guard. They didn't plan for rental rates to double in a 3 to 5 year program. Housing was abundant for a long time here in the Valley, but since COVID, as well as the lack of building during that time period, they weren't issuing new permits to build new single family residents. So the piggyback of the double in rental cost, as well as the lack of new builds because of labor and material costs, it's created really a perfect storm where individuals are now being so caught off guard by the high purchase prices and the recent increase in interest rates, as well as the double in rental rates. We're seeing a really big problem as far as the availability of quality, affordable housing here in the Valley. And that's really taking the biggest toll on new families because they're needing that, again, additional square footage, but now they're having to put kids in, a couple kids in the same room. It's kind of a problem. So with our new relationships we've made with an institution by the name of CalAm Properties, they've increased our availability to own multiple homes at the same time to flip, right, for a seller carry finance note, which offers us more stability in the market, not having to fully focus on 55 and older, as well as have more variety availability for the commercialization of providing manufactured housing. It's really been an instrumental growth factor for us in particular to have that wide variety in quality family communities where historically we were just focusing on 55 and older. I think that's the new capitalization in the market, again, because of the current economic environment in my local market here in Arizona and the lack of housing, et cetera. I'm sure James would agree.
Yeah. And, as we talk about this, I always try to look at things, when we're on having an open discussion about this, what's the benefit to the actual investor, the note investor? And we've kind of walked through it, and I'm happy to walk through, for us to walk through it again, because, it's low cost housing. How do you really capitalize as an investor, and what's the approach? And we're seeing multiple approaches that come across this. As you look at Alden's tag that he has on his name, he put on there, which is a new fund that we created, which is called Silvercrest Opportunity Fund. But we do start with, technically we have 3 companies that are rolling into one, and this is all evolved because of the demand for low-cost housing. So our main company is Wynn Mobile Homes. Wynn Mobile Homes is in the business of buying, rehabbing, and reselling with owner financing mobile homes on leased land. We work our Wynn Mobile Homes relationship with the institutions, like Alden mentioned, including CalAm and other institutional investment groups that look for companies that are licensed and bonded. We happen to be licensed and bonded, which is great. It makes us stand tall with any prospective institutional investor. But Wynn Mobile Homes is the beginning basis of it all. It like creates the whole platform. And then from Wynn Mobile Homes, once we have a property that's been rehabbed and we have a buyer, we get them Dodd-Frank compliant to make sure, because we're essentially double qualifying these people. Number one, they have to get qualified with the park. You see my finger, number one. So number one, they have to get qualified with the park. So what is the park qualifications? Is they require a 600 plus credit score, active income, proof of income, up to, I just had to do my own personal qualifications with the park. They wanted up to a year's worth of personal income, no felonies, never an eviction. If anybody's ever had an eviction, you can never buy it or live in a property in a mobile home park. No active bankruptcy. So they really run them through the ringer. And then we partnered with a Dodd-Frank compliance company, a third-party company that runs them through the second round. So once they get approved with the park and they're good, we run them through our financing, and through our financing, our main goal is to get 100% of the people Dodd-Frank compliant. So Dodd-Frank compliance is the whole debt to income ratio and a whole other assortment of qualifications. So those people essentially are getting double qualified in comparison to buying a single family home. They just have to get qualified once, right? They just go through the regular program. But in a manufactured home on leased land and parks, they have to get qualified twice. And the beauty of that, even though it slows our process down and it's a whole lot more work for us on the Wynn Mobile Home side, once somebody gets approved with the park and they get approved through Dodd-Frank compliance, the value of that note becomes really, really strong from our perspective, because it really shows that that person can really afford the property, they can afford the payments, and we're all good. Then we roll them over into mobile mailbox money. We have a couple reps that work with us. We have one is Sunny Finkel. You guys may have talked to her if you looked at a note. She handles our East Coast. She actually lives in Florida. And then we have Sean Gibson, who handles primarily our West Coast people. He actually lives here in Arizona, and Sean works on some international investors also. So we're building out a bigger platform. For the goal ultimately is we're going to probably take this business model and take some fashion of it and maybe roll it out into, we like the Florida market, although it's very far from for us. We need to continue to have discussions with other investors and so forth, and may be able to create a unique program with those investors to start developing and doing the same business model, say in the Florida market or the Texas market or the Alabama market. Because what we've done is we've really kind of refined it out. We put processes in place. We have bookkeeping behind us. We have our note manager, Cynthia Cardinale, who works with us. So we have a full team on the back end side that's working, while we have a whole nother team. We probably have 15 full-time rehabbers that we've built up here in the Arizona market that are little 2-man, 3-man teams running across and just doing the rehabs on each with their own specific skill set. And then, as we walked through this, we said, this is really great. What's the benefit to the institutions is that we're a company that will come in and help really beautify that home that brings value to the park. And so we realized that there's a bigger opportunity that's in play, that our main goal is to start buying RV and mobile home parks and taking the position of ownership of the park, and then still running our individual program underneath it. It could be a really great model, but we know that we can't do it alone. So when Alden asked me to come on to this podcast, I'm like, we want to make sure that we don't just talk about, the notes that we have. There's a whole bigger program that's going on that we're trying to develop out. and not trying, we are developing out. And it takes a bigger team to make that happen. And I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from that as we all use our mind and our knowledge and our network of people. It's all about your network is your net worth, right? So it's all about that. And it's exciting that you guys actually meet on a weekly basis so that over a period of time, your minds start really thinking alike and you're like, hey, this, maybe we could do this. We could make this happen. And I know that we were just in Nashville, Tennessee for the conference in Nashville. That, by the way, that was brutal. I'm still limping from it. I don't know if you guys know, but Alden and I had a direct flight. I got to say it again because I'm still limping and I'm having to stretch my back out every day now from it. I think I pinched a nerve in my lower back, which is terrible, but I'm going to get through it. But Alden and we brought one of our investors and our social media guy with us, and we had a direct flight on Thursday to go straight to Nashville. And after 7 hours of delays at the airport, it became like 10:30 at night. We're like, man, we've got to get to this event. We paid for a booth. We paid for time. We have prospective clients that we want to see out there. And so we made the command call instead of just saying, well, our flight was supposed to leave about 3:30, I think it was. And now it's 10 o'clock at night. We ended up buying a one-way flight to Vegas, of all places. The Vegas flight gets in at 1 o'clock in the morning in Vegas, and there's a 5 a.m. flight on Southwest to Nashville. Well, by the time we get to Vegas, it's like 1:30. There's no sense in renting a hotel for like an hour and a half. We might as well just stay at the airport. That was the most coldest airport in my life. You would think it was Arctic still.
Chicago isn't much better.
It was bad.
We sat there, and Alden and them, they laid down on the concrete floor. I'm like, oh my God. So we end up showing up. The guys that were there on Friday, we still had our clothes on from the previous day that we spent the night in the airport. This is real life situation going on. We showed up. I'm in my shorts from last night. I'm in my T-shirt from last night.
Our bags didn't make it.
Yeah, and our bags didn't make it until we had our 45-minute breakout session, and our bags were arriving at the airport, which had all of our information for our event, our breakout session, and everything. So we just kind of winged it, overall, and it worked out. It was good. It was a good little knowledge base.
It actually went great. We had some great reception from individuals. Luckily, we had some pre-video and stuff kind of set up. So, shake and bake, as they say.
Yeah. And, sometimes the challenge is, the reality in anything, in business or whatever, sometimes when the obstacle is there, we always have to think, there's always a solution to the situation. And the reality is it's never as bad as what we think. And, we put our heads together and said, okay, this is going to be, we just got to do it. We just got to get there. And we got there, and go figure. And by the way, we flew on American Airlines. I was like, okay, I don't want a low cost carrier that the flight can cancel. Let's fly American. We're definitely going to get there. So American canceled our flight going out. We ended up taking Southwest there. Coming back, we had the same situation happen. We didn't have to do the overnight airport thing. But our flight got canceled, got delayed on the day that we left, and ended up getting canceled. We had to go buy Southwest Airlines again to fly back to Arizona, and we're just now starting to see our credits. But we probably spent double or triple to do that flight. But, you got to do it when you got to make it happen. And so we made it happen, and there's our little story. But we know that the importance of our business model is the relationship component with prospective investors, and things aren't going to work perfect. That's the reality of it all. We're going to do our best to help make sure that our program is working right, but there's a lot of human factors that are in it. There's human factors in the acquisition and the rehab, getting people qualified. You have the human factor of the personalities of the people that are buying the home. a lot of emotion is riding back and forth of them being really excited but wanting things their way, and it's just kind of crazy. And then you still have the situation, we want to make sure that we put together a note that makes sense for the investor and that the note is performing. And the whole performing situation, there's bumps in the road that happens with performance. We're a boots on the ground company, so the benefit of doing business with us, we happen to be here. So as things happen, because nothing works perfect, the reality of it all, things don't work perfect in life, and we've got to deploy a team to help try to mitigate that situation to make sure that note is performing. However it's going to get performed, that's the main goal. And if it doesn't, we already have the attorney firm behind us. We already have the eviction team. We already have the cleanup team. We've got it all in place in comparison to someone going out and buying a note in Indianapolis, and you have no relationship out there. It's a 8% note or even a 10% note, and the people stop paying. You're like, oh man, what am I going to do? I've got to hire an attorney to evict them. You call up the attorney. Every attorney across the country wants $2,500 to $5,000 retainer. They're going to take 30 days to get it figured out. It's a process. So the cool part with us is we have a system already in place to help the investor should something go wrong, because we always have to know that not everything's going to work perfect. Sometimes things do happen, and we have to just make sure that we want you to feel that if you do business with us, we have a team behind us, and you're able to use that team for the main goal, which is to have a performing note and get the return that you're looking for.
And James, Alden, on that, to piggyback off of that, can you explain your business model, the benefit or the pros and cons for the investor investing in your Win Mobile Homes? Well, as far as one thing, they're buying it at par, and the land is not a part of the deal. So, right. And I'm not saying anything because I am an investor, so I understand. But can you share some of the pros and cons?
I think the biggest pro that we have, there's two big things that we push. And number one is we charge a higher interest rate. It's a convenience rate that we're allowed to charge. We charge 14%. If we were selling notes at 8 and 10%, we'd probably have to discount them, because you have other alternative things that you can make 8 and 10%. So we'd have to want to try to beat the market. How do we get you to do business with us? There's got to be, some little niche that's in there. So the first big thing is that we charge a convenience rate of 14%. And we've been doing that for 4 years now. And even when interest rates were 2.5%, and people were like, how are you going to get that? We're like, hey, it's a convenience. Tell them to go get a loan from somebody else. But if they can't get the loan from anybody else, we're available, and it's 14% to the note buyer or to the owner of the property. We tell them, listen, you can refinance anytime you want. This will get you in the house. And just to let you know, 98% of the time, the people stay with the note. That they rarely call and refinance out of the note. So the 14% note is the big gem and charm. And we'll have, 50 to 100 note investors at any given time that are like, hey, what do you got? What do you got? What do you got? I've got 100,000. What do you got? I want that 14% note. So that's number one. Number two, there is a big benefit to helping people become homeowners. And I talked just briefly on a panel at the Note Investment Conference at the very end. And we don't want to lose sight of that, which is a little bit of a give back of what are you doing in your business that you're helping someone else out in life. What are you doing? We're called to serve in life. And what are you doing to help people? We see this low cost housing component where these people can't find a loan from anybody else. They're going to be stuck in their apartment, for the next 20 years or whatever it is. And we actually come to a little bit of a rescue for people to help them get into home ownership. Alden happened to mention we've really been trying to focus more on the all age, because there is a higher demand, but it's really hard to get all age homes, by the way, because the demand is so strong. But, you know, when we do get an all age home and it happens to be a 4-bedroom, we're really fulfilling the need. And it's a big Hispanic market purchase, but they're so excited that they mentally know that they have a safe, secure place for their family, and they can grow their family to however many people that they want to have, but they can grow their family in one environment that they actually own. So there is a big give back that's associated with this by providing the actual note. So you guys that are the note investors, you're fulfilling a humanity need that's out there, that it's not always, you know, in life, we always say, don't focus so much on the money, on how much you're making, focus on the good that you're doing, and that good will transpose into the money that you want to make in your life. And, you know, I can't say enough for that in regards to helping people become homeowners. There's a super win for that. Yes, we are making 14%. Yes, it is a high rate, but that to us, that was kind of the number that helps enlist interest from other note investors or people just in the investment business that have an interest in the business model that we do. Now, as we do that, you know, we have a little bit of a challenge as we go into trying to acquire RV parks and mobile home parks. And, you know, we're not necessarily seeing an immediate return of that. It's more like a 8-9% return, but we're looking at doing under the Silvercrest Opportunity Fund that we've recently established, is we're doing a debt program plus an equity program, because we want ultimately the investor that comes with us into that program, for us to be able to make it successfully work. We know that ultimately that investor needs a windfall on the equity side at exit, which could be 3 to 5 years. And we could talk more about that later, but you know, the reality is you have to give to get, and we continually work on that business model, on that idea that I know personally, you know, we're in Arizona. For us to do a deal in another market, we're going to need some additional capital partners that have a vested interest, that hopefully are in that market and that want to participate with us and build into that program for everybody to win. That's why we actually called it, you know, our main business, Win Mobile Homes, because we want it to be a winning situation for everyone.
Thank you, James. You made me feel better about myself.
That's fabulous. So,
hey, James, I had a real quick question regarding the 14%. Are you guys running into any issues, especially around Dodd-Frank? Because they typically, you know, they like to see you like right around the current interest rates plus, or, you know, like plus 2 basis points. And just, you know, out of that, have you had any notes going to foreclosure with being such a high rate?
So
Yeah.
Alden has a quick answer on that.
Yeah, that's a great question. The Dodd-Frank compliance, the rate, we've always charged the same rate. And we haven't so much had a problem with our third-party company saying, hey, you know, you're charging quote unquote too high of a rate. We know Arizona is a usury state unless otherwise agreed upon in writing. So really that was to combat the mafias, you know, doing bad loans. To make sure that people are actually going through the formal processes and legal documents to make sure that everything's up to par. So we've always charged a 14% rate. What was you had one more question.
If you had any notes going to foreclosure, and if you had any, you know, like any kickback with the Dodd-Frank, with those rates being above.
Yeah. So, and I know Steve and Rodney, with Steven's extensive knowledge in mobile home parks, as well as Rodney, them both being note investors, it's a great thing to see the cons of a investment strategy, right? Because you're wanting to mitigate your risk at any given time to make sure that you're in a positive program. So that being said, we have gone through the formal eviction and foreclosure processes a few times over the past 5 years, and it's never been an issue. There's always some kind of red tape. But that being said, we do have a great law firm behind us that is their eviction and foreclosure attorneys. So they're 5 days a week running through those programs. And I think if I may speak, I think it's like $1,000, $1,500 to ultimately go through the full eviction and writ of restitution in order to retitle that property into the lender's name. At that time, obviously, you have the full capacity of our company to go back in and recash flow that property. You got some boots on the ground. We'll go and view the home, assess it, and at cost, we'll translate the cost over to the investor, but they get the benefit of those discounts of not having to hire an attorney out of pocket or whatever. So we'll help them recash flow that property and put it back up for sale with our already marketed platform. So Win Mobile Homes is always marketing homes for sale in these general areas. So that's some potential risk, right? In every investment strategy, there is a risk, and you're trying to mitigate that at any given time. And the mitigation comes from the Dodd-Frank compliance, right? So they're fully qualified, as well as their down payment. They put a down payment towards that property. So they're vested. It's not just a rental from them to just walk away or whatever. And as well as the documentation. So we have full promissory notes, as well as a lien recorded on the title through the Department of Transportation. It's not a residential transaction. Important to distinguish the two. It is handled through the Department of Transportation, but you do have a secured lien on that home. So that's how we go through the processes of from non-payment to 40-day keys back to us, and then remarketing that property for sale. All of those items are on a checklist ultimately for our capital partners within these notes to have that at their availability at any given time. And obviously, there's some bumps in the road here and there on case specific situations, but it's good to know we have a good framework and have already oiled the wheel of this process to make sure that it's a well-structured program, and we're trying to mitigate our risk as well as our investors' risks within these programs. Because the last thing we want to do is have somebody, lose a boatload of money because the programs weren't in place and, there was some lack of knowledge operating in the space. That's not the case. We've got a very well buttoned program to mitigate the risk of loss at any given time.
And Alden, can you expand on that? What happens with your investor during that period of the process?
Yeah, so it depends on which two of the opportunities that they've taken place in. Either they take the full acquisition of that note, right, at the face rate, and they've received the blessing of the full face rate of that passive cash flow, or they've hypothecated the note with us, which means we're a vested partner within that note. Number one, if you were to acquire a note 100%, you would take on the potential responsibilities of recash flowing that property. At the same time, if you buy a note from us, you have access to our back office staff and attorneys who, from 40 days of non-payment, you're getting a writ of restitution and things of that nature with the full acquisition of that note, right? So at that time, we would go in and reassess the property at cost, either paint it and add flooring if needed, like if you were turning a rental almost, to go in and get it back to a turnkey availability. So we provide those at cost, right? And we would remarket the property for sale for the investor, opposed to having to come into state and find a contractor and blah, 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 which is a challenge, right? So that's the full acquisition of a note at the face rate of what that entails. The hypothecated program is a more risk mitigated factor while still earning a satisfactory 10% return, right? So that means that on the same asset, the note that was underwritten and all of that, same program, we hypothecate that note and pledge that asset in order to garnish a capital investment from, say, Rodney. So Rodney wanted a more mitigated risk factor. He wanted us to be vested into that note where if it goes non-performing, Win Mobile Homes takes on that potential cost and the eviction fees and things of that nature to remarket that property for sale. So they still earn and get a lien on the property. They're still getting a satisfactory monthly payment potentially of that 10%. And we make for being a vested partner within that note. So those are the two kind of if things were to go non-performing in the two strategies that we have to offer now.
That's fabulous. I'd like to bring Steve into this conversation, and maybe Steve, you can talk about what you're doing with the mobile home space.
Sure. Thanks, Greg. So I'm a park owner operator. So this system that James and Alden have where they are providing financing for the mobile home parks is hugely advantageous for operators out there because there's not a lot of lenders in the space who will lend on mobile homes inside of a park, not including the land. There's, maybe you guys can speak to your biggest competitors is probably 21st Mortgage, Triad, PPP. I think they're still around. And they can be very, because they're national, they're very, it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of qualifications, a lot of hoops to jump through. They have higher standards against, they make the park, they put the park in second position on the homes that they lend on. You guys don't do that, right?
Yeah, we currently do not do that. And we've heard of that happening where the park, I guess, almost co-signs, that.
Yeah, that's the better word is the park ends up having to co-sign on some of these loans. Which park owners, they're not in the business of lending and co-signing. They're in the park of renting out land. So that's not a business model they like. So what you guys have to offer is advantageous. And then, I can definitely say, James, you mentioned once you get to the level where you have the park and then you use this model within the park, it is hugely advantageous. We do it not at such a fine-tuned level as you guys do. You guys have crews, you're in a really, really strong market. And that's a big difference than what we have. We're not in the same Arizona market. We're not in Florida either. We're up in the Midwest. So financing doesn't work quite as in our favor as it does for you guys. But when you have control over it in your own park, boy, it is huge. There's a big advantage there. So I definitely encourage to see you guys taking down some parks and just, you're plugging this other business, essentially Win Mobile Homes, into that spot that, it's very well needed.
And, Steve, as you talked about that, and we met briefly at the conference, you have a skill set, I believe that you do, of the whole financing model of getting to understand what's a good park to acquire, or RV park, mobile home park, whatever it is. So I'm probably going to be reaching out to you. I need to make sure that I have your contact information.
Yes,
because that's a big step, for us on a step up. When you're doing those larger deals, you have to make sure that you have the right financial model. It's not just seeing the park and looking at it and visually inspecting it and making sure all the deferred maintenance in place and so forth. There's a whole big financial model that runs behind it to get justification, because that's what the banks are doing. Obviously, they're going to run a model to say, hey, this is the value that we see financially, besides the physical component of it or the appraisal on it. And we're not super finance guys. We're investment people based off of the skill set that we currently have. So yeah, I'm definitely going to need to follow up with you on that.
Well, and something different about mobile home parks and these mobile home notes that you guys have is, a lot of investors are looking they look at appreciation. They look at, they're looking at, what's the value of the home today, whereas the notes, mobile homes, mobile home parks, the way they're evaluated is on what's the cash flow they spit out every month. And that's probably the biggest difference in the notes, in mobile home notes from regular notes. almost everyone comes and says, well, don't mobile homes depreciate and lose value? Yeah, they do. They're worth nothing after a short while, just like a car, very similar. But that is not a thing I care about. For me, it's the cash flow. And because I'm serving, a lower income market, and because of how I can set the pricing based on what apartments are at in the market, they can cash flow very, very well. So at the end of the day, that's the biggest difference with both parks and the individual homes is, if you're going in looking for appreciation, it's the wrong thing for you. You have to understand you're looking at cash flow monthly, annually, whatever that is. That's the big difference. And if that's what you're looking at, this is a great asset class to get into.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's a cash flow and income oriented investment strategy. You're not banking on the appreciation of the property, but at the same time, like let's say you were to buy an $80,000 note at the face rate. On 80,000, you're earning $995 on an $80,000 acquisition. Where can you pay $80,000 and make a $995 payment on a 30-day after 30 days of acquisition? That's pretty tough to find. And its ability for a lower acquisition than traditional real estate investment strategies and a higher cash flow. I think that obviously, if you're banking on appreciation, this may not be the opportunity for you. But if you're looking for that high cash flow and lower acquisitions than traditional real estate investment strategies, Stephen, I think it's a great opportunity.
Yeah. And when I was at DME with you guys, I talked to some different people. They want to be sold on mobile home notes. And because they don't get it, because they don't look at it, they look at it as a traditional real estate piece. They forget that cash flow is so advantageous because they're so used to looking at it with their vision, their goggles on. And, for me, that's why I really love what you guys are doing with Win and Mobile Mailbox Money is, it's mobile homes. I get that industry. It does not intimidate me because I know how to look at the numbers. I know, and I'm confident in how you guys, unlike I would say a lot of owner created notes out there, you guys take it through the MLO process and make it Dodd-Frank compliant, and you can trade it on the secondary market. And that's going to be very attractive. And you're still at 14%. That's a huge advantage. You don't find those interest rates unless you're looking at land. And land's one thing I don't get. Right now, I'm not investing in land. I want to understand it better, just like people want to understand mobile homes, but my brain just hasn't wrapped around it yet.
Yeah, it's all an opportunity. Low cost housing at the end of the day, cash flow, like you mentioned, we have our various business models that we've set up. It's all low cost housing, and it's what the entire country is in desperate need. Doesn't matter how big the market. We happen to, like you mentioned, Arizona is a really dynamic market. There's massive appreciation that happens to be going through Arizona, all relative to the current interest rate. One-time interest rates will start adjusting, back down, and pricing will go through the roof again. But while that's going on, the demand for housing is so strong that the rental market just keeps it up. Like, it's completely ridiculous. Like Alden said, it's close to $2,000 a month to rent a studio apartment in Maricopa County. That's crazy. I mean, just what was it, 8 years ago was half that rate. But the demand is just so strong. So
Rodney, Maurice, and Larry, do you guys invest in mobile home notes at this time in parks? Maybe you've done it on land. Is that something you look at, or do you run?
Yeah, I have a lot of land notes, and I own a lot of mobile home notes. But the mobile home notes that I typically buy are they have land associated with it.
And are they real estate at that point? They're detitled and everything?
Yeah, they're titled. But what happens is, I can foreclose and get that back. Okay. I'm more, the value for me is more in the land play than it is the mobile home.
Right. And what's your cost basis to get in and handle, have that note? You've got to buy the land, you've got to have the home on it. You originate the note, I'm assuming, and sell it off. And
no, when I buy them, I typically they're already originated. So I'll just go ahead and buy them. And then I've had other people originate loans to me. I think Alden, and I think somebody else came to me regarding a note that's on leased land, and I typically just don't do those. I want a land associated with the mobile home.
Here's the difference on us on our side is a manufactured home on land, including the land, which could get regular financing, FHA financing, etc. That property is going to be $300,000+. Okay, so the note's going to be in Arizona. So the note's about, let's call it 250 to 300. So someone can take a chance, and that rate is going to be at 7%. It's a 7% note. So you have a base rate of about 7% a note investor can make, which is institutional investors, 21st mortgage and so forth. They're going to do that's not 21st mortgage, regular FHA loans, because it includes the land. They'll get a 7% government-backed loan, whatever it is. But again, you're close to 300 at 7%. And we look at it, yes, a mobile home on leased land, it's not necessarily a normal investor. It's not as attractive as buying having a note investment with land, but you're at 300,000 on one side. On our side, our average note is about $60,000, let's call it. That means you can diversify up to, if you had 300,000, you could buy 5 notes with us. So you're spreading the risk out between 5 different notes in comparison, and you're getting a 14% rate, which is crazy. So what's for us, especially our local investors in the Arizona market, they get it after they conceptually run through that process. Oh yeah, I've got $500,000 in my IRA. I want to buy notes. Well, you're going to burn that in Arizona. You're going to burn that, or any market like Arizona, you're going to burn it on 2 deals. You're out. Where in Arizona, think of it as like a $60,000 increment, and so your risk is you're spreading it out and getting a higher rate.
What's the cost, Larry, up there with the land and manufactured home? What's your average cost?
Oh, you mean when I buy the home or the that note? I mean, I've paid anywhere from 15,000 all the way up to about 80 on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the rate that you're getting on those?
I'm usually getting about a 17% interest rate, a yield on the. But you have to understand also, I buy a lot of bank-owned properties where they're non-performing notes or BK notes as well.
Okay.
So that's why I'm getting a pretty good yield on those.
You have to go through the workout and reestablish the deal and so forth.
Yeah. I work with my servicer to do that, and then they reach out to the borrower, and or I will get involved and have the conversation with them.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Obviously, knowing the ins and outs of a non-performing or a bankruptcy note, I love that. Obviously, there's a big deal for that, for sure.
Yeah.
I
I really enjoy them. I mean, I really buy a lot of land notes as well.
We normally don't see that in this market, at least in Arizona. If somebody goes behind on their property and it includes land, they're going to have 50 offers on the property. And, the chance of it actually going to auction is really, really slim.
Right.
In 2009 to 2013, I raised $9 million, and I was one of the leading buyers in the West Valley before the hedge funds were really coming into play. And we were buying single-family homes that had, in 2005 to 2007, sold for $250,000 in the West Valley, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home. And we were buying them in 2009 when the market really fell out to 2013. We were paying $60,000 for that house, and they were renting for $800. Gone are those days. The chance of us seeing those pricing ever again is, who would have known? At one point in time, my investment, I was in a partnership at the time, and we had private investors, But during that time, we owned 160 houses in the West Valley that we were renting out. And the crazy part, our basis was about $60,000 per property that was renting at 800. So we're making like 13-14% on our money. And Blackstone started funding around 2013, started funding Treehouse Group, Colony Capital, and all these other investment groups who were coming in and coming to companies like ours and saying, hey, we'll buy you out. What do you got? We'll buy you out. And I'll never forget that. In around middle of 2013, first of 2014, they ended up buying out our entire portfolio. And I was like, oh, this is great. Our average cost was about $60,000 per home. We sold over 3/4 of our inventory on average of 120, 130. Wow. We got $120,000 on homes that we only had about 60. We're making $60,000 a house. Those same dang houses now are $400,000. So you never know, you never know, you never know. And the day that we closed on those, because we were buying at auction every day, the day we closed on it, those same houses that we just sold, now we're having to pay $120,000, $130,000, which is what we sold them for, and we still got to fix them up and rent them out and start the program all over again. Never should have sold them, should have financed them all and kept them forever. I'd be on an island right now saying, I'm in Maui right now on the beach, all is good, but we sold them anyway. It's a story in itself.
I was talking to Steve a lot at Diversified Mortgage Expo about his, expertise in acquiring mobile home parks. We think, we're ready to do that, Steve. I think, help us possibly source some deals if you can, or, let's figure out where that strategy's at. We'll bring everybody along with Silvercrest Opportunity Fund.
Can do.
We could use that little bump of help of just getting our feet into I see a lot of deals. When you start looking for something, you're going to see a lot. And but the whole evaluation process, it's a time consuming thing. How do you weave out because it is a challenge. And we know that the last thing I want to do is get into an acquisition with investors that is not what was presented to us by the time that we buy it, and that could happen. So we want to be careful because it's a bigger investment strategy in comparison to an individual property.
Awesome.
Yeah, obviously there's definite risks with trying to validate the financials of a mobile home park and how true those are at the end of the day. You're really kind of almost taking someone's word for it until acquisition, and then you see all the bow ties come off.
Yeah.
That's exactly the truth there. There's been in the game long enough now that I can see, I can see how it can be written one way on paperwork, and then it's like, well, wait a minute, no, I know that the numbers for X, Y, and Z is probably closer to this. Yeah, let's double check that. And there's a lot of on a bigger asset, a bigger commercial project like that, there's a lot of other things that are kind of hidden within the different bookkeeping categories that you might not think of.
What are some of those? If you had to name like three, what are the three, ones you see people putting under the rug?
Say the stuff that can get moved around. I'm not going to say hidden because it depends on what it is. Sometimes you have a project that's a CapEx project if you have to do a plumbing repair. Sometimes it's CapEx. Sometimes it's an emergency. Do you count that as CapEx? Yeah, it's a really gray area. I don't know. Sometimes you have the way that parks will break out their labor is a really weird one, especially park manager labor. Park managers, a mom and pop operation, they might sell and they might not pay themselves anything. And they'll say like, oh, look at how much money this park puts off in cash flow every single month. Well, at the end of the day, they're really taking most of that cash flow and putting it in they're using it. They're just not paying themselves with it. So it's equivalently the same. And that's a little bit of a weird thing. And you got to really just kind of take your best shot and know the market labor prices out there and what you think is realistic. That's probably the hardest thing to predict, is that for me, the labor pricing and the quality of labor that you can find.
Labor's tough. It's getting harder and harder nowadays to find, quality labor at a decent rate, and people that'll actually show up. That's a tough thing, especially since COVID. Everyone was on the unemployment and such. I had a buddy of mine that was making like $4,000 a month. He was making more money on unemployment at the time than he was making on his regular job. I'm like, dude, what incentive do people have to even go out and try hard and, elevate their income if they're in a general labor or a specialized labor position on a construction company or, whatever? It's highly unincentivized. I saw a statistic actually that the average age of GCs has risen, I think, now to 45 years old, which, what does that mean? That means the younger generations are not filling that gap, ultimately creating a shortage of labor and now a higher labor cost. It's like a crazy storm.
Yeah. Hey guys, I see the time is a hair past 2, and I've got another commitment I've got to run off to, but so I got to say goodbye and check out.
Yeah, me too. I've got a video shoot.
Okay. All right.
Thank you everyone for coming today. This has been a fabulous discussion. And maybe just before we go, maybe Maurice and Larry and Rodney, maybe you can just introduce yourselves and tell you just about what you do. The 30-second little thing about what you do in the investment space here.
Well, I'll just say that I'm just a private investor looking for great opportunities to increase my cash flow and hopefully benefit in some form or fashion a homeowner.
That's great. That's fabulous. Okay, Larry?
Yep. My name is Larry Hoffman. I'm the managing member of LGH Investments. I buy performing, non-performing notes across the United States, and I offer an above-average return to my venture partners.
And Maurice?
I'm Maurice Jr. I've been investing in notes for the last 5.5 years. I own 3 group homes, but I think the most intriguing thing here, everyone on the call covered, affordable housing solution, investment strategies in mobile homes. They touched on the management, the maintenance behind it, different things of that nature. But the most important piece, like I said, is the affordable housing. And that's kind of like where I'm looking to kind of get into there, Greg. So appreciate you having me.
Awesome. Thank you. And Steve, how do people get a hold of you?
You can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/connect with Steve Johnson. That's where I'm most available. Okay. I'm posting every day up there.
Okay. I'm going to post the LinkedIn events and the websites for all of you after this when the chaos subsides. Anyway, thank you very much for coming. This is a great conversation we've had today.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Hey, thanks, fellas.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy Saturday, everyone.
Happy Saturday.